Okay, call the meeting to order. St. Mark Street Park Working Group, 7:02 p.m. on Thursday, the 27th of, what month is this? October, thank you. All right. The first order of business is to review and approve the minutes for July 28th, August 4, August 25, and September 22. Do I have any additions or corrections for the minutes of July 28th?
I believe I do. Let me just pull it up here.
All right.
Oh, yeah. So at the very end where it says documents included, we actually did use the design prioritization spreadsheet and made significant edits to it at that meeting.
Okay.
So it's called, if you want the name of it, James, I can just give it to you now.
Actually, you can, I think I have a copy of it, the finalized version, right?
Yes, I think
Okay,
so.
so I can just put that in.
The results of working group design feature prioritization
Okay.
updated.
Design. Any other documents? I looked, I knew that one was one, but I didn't see any others. Photos?
There were a couple photos shown,
Yeah.
but I am not sure.
I think Andrew
about
had
that.
some photos, so I'll put in Andrew's photos too. How's that? Because I've got those. All right. And with these corrections, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes as they are amended?
So moved.
Okay, that's Kevin. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and that's Grant. All right. Mr. Dennington.
Aye.
Ms. Landry, aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols-Worley.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Farrington.
Aye.
Oh, Mr. Sines, I can't see you, but I know it's you because it says William.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So they pass. Accepted. All right, the next one is, I think, August 4th. Do we have emendations or corrections for that?
Nothing for me. I thought they looked great.
All right. Nope, I don't think there was. All right, so do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
All right, was that Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin moves, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Andrew, all right. Mr. Dennington.
Aye.
Ms. Landry, aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols-Worley.
Aye.
Mr. Farrington.
Aye.
Mr. Sines.
Aye.
All right, accepted unanimously. And August 25th, which has been posted as a draft. Do I have any emendations or corrections?
I think on administrative number 3, where it says heavy equipment and then 7 and 9, you should just say September 7 to 9. Make it clear.
All right.
That was actually one of my changes, and I just also clarified first and second by adding the first and second, 7th through 9th, just in case it wasn't clear.
Okay. So with that emendation, and what do we have for documents? The plan for the park design, the VHB plan, correct?
Yeah, I actually just have 2 quick things as well, Marguerite, if you don't mind.
All right, go ahead.
The first was public comment for Patricia Burns-Fiore. I think it said wrong-sided. I think was that supposed to be wrong-minded?
I'm not sure on what the quote was. When I was originally taking notes for that, I'll pull up the notes I originally took during that meeting.
Oh, okay. Wrong-sided was coming up as a spelling error for me, and I just wasn't.
Yeah, I wrote it down as wrong-sided, but maybe we should just have it as wrong.
Wrong-headed?
Wrong-headed. Yeah, I said minded. Yeah, but either of those, something like that.
All right, shall we go with wrong-headed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then-
Wrong-headed, all right.
A more substantive one. Under presentation of VHB landscape architect and potential designs for the park,
Mhm.
I realized, I mean, I thought it looked good at first, and then I realized that we don't actually say that, like what he presented. So I added a new bullet. I'm looking at an amended version, so I'm not sure if it's just, I added a new bullet at the top, and I said something along the lines of, Michael Klitschman presented 3 design options generated using input given by the working group in their August 4th meeting.
Okay, so do we want to move that? So administrative 1, 2, 3, presentation VHB 4, 5, 6, and then move all the numbers along? What about doing Michael Klutschman presented 3 designs and the rest of what you said, which you're going to tell me and I'll write it down. And then period, designs have similar costs which are flexible, and run that all into number 4.
That would be fine with me.
Okay, can you say that sentence again that you just said that was so lovely?
Sure. Michael Klutschman,
Mm-hmm,
spelled Kluchman,
got it.
presented 3 design options,
Mm-hmm,
comma, generated using input given by the working group in their August 4th meeting.
okay. All right, and then I'll just align that with the designs have similar costs which are flexible as another sentence on that number 4, if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds great.
Does that work? Okay, and then for documents included would be the plans for park design created by VHB, so we're good. All right, are we good? Do I have a motion to accept as amended?
Move to accept as amended minutes of August 25th.
Okay. That's Kevin, and do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, and that's Grant. Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Ms. Landry? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols-Worley?
Aye.
Mr. Farrington?
Aye.
Mr. Sines?
Aye.
All right, great, accepted as amended. And our last, September 22nd. Do I have any emendations?
I have 2 very minor ones.
All right,
The first is for the discussion of the letter from the town planner.
mm-hmm,
It looked like there was just like an extra return on the header that kind of broke up the name of it. So I just deleted that so that it, like, I think the entire name of the letter is Scenic Road Stone Wall Removal. So I just made it all one line, if that makes sense. And then the only other one is Miller
that's a
seconds.
formatting thing, okay, yep.
Yep, and then Miller seconds at the end there was no space. So it was Miller seconds rather than Miller seconds.
Like Miller
Where
time.
are we?
I saw that, but I was going to let that one go because it felt like a vanity project to raise it. Thank you.
All right.
I've got you, Kevin.
Is that
Okay,
it? Can I move to accept the minutes of September 22nd as amended?
one other thing, the very end for documents included, I think it says plans for park design created by VHB. I would delete that and put in letter from Karina Quinn, town planner. Is that okay? All
That's right. I actually don't think that we went over the designs at that meeting, so that's.
No, I think that it's just, there's a lot of data in everybody's life right now. Okay, so do I have Kevin has moved to accept as amended? Do I have a second?
Second.
Grant, you're on, thanks. Okay, Mr. Dennington.
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Landry, aye. Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols-Worley.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Farrington.
A resounding aye.
All right, that's good. James, if you could send those to me as non-PDFs.
We didn't
Wait,
get
I don't
Bill
think
on
Bill
there.
voted.
Yeah, Bill didn't get to vote on that.
He didn't. Oh, Mr. Sines.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. God, I thought I heard you say you did. All right. All right. So if I can get these in anything besides a PDF, or I can switch them over. We'll deal with it. Anyway, congratulations, everyone. We are up to date in our
Thank
minutes.
you very much, James and Marguerite. for coming.
Yeah, really. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. The next agenda item is public comment. Do we have anyone? Let's see. No. All right. No public comment. All right. The third agenda item is update from Select Board Member Andrew Dennington concerning ongoing working group charge and status of land swap. Andrew, you're on.
So the long and the short of the discussion at the last select board meeting about the project in the working group was that the revised timeline is that the working group should present an interim report to the select board by December 15th regarding its progress. And the board voted to not move forward with any work on the land until there's been a town meeting vote on the land swap, which is in the process of being documented between St. Mark's School and the town of Southborough.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to know? Okay, and I would like to throw this open to the working group at this point. The question now is, do we, given the uncertainty between the DPW changes and that relationship with the state and the land swap, do we want to hold a public forum?
Should we move on to that agenda item? Thank you, Andrew, by the way. Can't imagine those select board meetings are quick.
Well, we can hold off on that if you want to, and talk about the historical commission input also. But I think the question for me at this point is, do we want to have a public forum or not? And if so, do we want to plan it tonight? I lay it out to you. What do you think?
Well, I say my strong opinion is yes, because what other interim steps would we take before beginning a public forum? I thought that the discussion before is the public forum would show the 3 designs, and then if the group that appeared wanted to create a new 4th design to consider, that we would entertain that. But what other steps would influence the end result is to make a recommendation about design themes, possible new name. What other interim steps would occur that would
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that, Andrew. That the only thing that the final verdict of the MHC may end up being material to the conception of the park. So I don't know if folks were willing to defer that aspect of the discussion until after. I could just report what's happening, and you can judge for yourself whether you think it's material or not.
I think, yes, I think that'd be a good idea. And William or Bill, I think there might be something wrong with your computer causing a bit of an echo. Testing.
Okay,
That
there it
helps.
is. Thank you for that, James. All right, so Kevin, why don't you welcome Freddie. Kevin, why don't you give us the update from the Historical Commission and Mass Historical insofar as you are able, or anybody is able to do that at this point, concerning the dig.
Yeah, and there's actually a little bit more as of today. Greg Walwer has indicated to me that he submitted his complete report, which is quite comprehensive and took a long time to prepare, last week. So MHC has 30 days to reply. So I would estimate, based on that, and he's indicated, Greg indicated to me any number of times that he expects the Mass Historical Commission to take the full 30 days in all likelihood. So that would put a reply to us by roughly Thanksgiving, possibly the week or like the week of Thanksgiving, if they comply with their own schedule. So that's interesting. The other part of this that I wanted to share was that as I've said publicly any number of times, I have really high degree of confidence in Greg Walwer and in ACS and in the integrity of the work that he's done and in his approach. I mean, he's been absolutely forthcoming and transparent and clear about what he's been doing throughout. So I personally feel very good about the work he's done. And I would again note, though, because I know there's been some objection in terms of scope of the work and comprehensiveness from some quarters, that before this even began, Greg was very clear. He came on the Historical Commission's call and explained that this dig was intended as, I believe the word he used was functional rather than academic. And that what that translates into is that he was going to investigate only those areas as shown on VHB plans that were slated for development. So this is why the investigation included areas on town-owned property, i.e. the library, because there was a scheduled walkway to go there. And so he wasn't going to look in areas that were expected to remain undisturbed. For instance, the scrim of trees just to the north of the old burial ground stone wall, sort of the north west corner where there's a little, stand of trees that was left. He made it very clear even before he began, I'm not going to investigate there because that's scheduled to be undisturbed. So, when those questions arise about why he didn't look at every last inch of the ground, that's the reason. And I would also point out, as I pointed out on the Historical Commission's call, because I think it's a really, really important point and a mark in Greg Walwer's favor, is that at one point in the dig, he was actually digging, they were scraping at that point, at the extreme northern tip of the parcel, actually where the St. Mark's parking lot is slated to be. And that was outside the initial scope or expectation of the work. And, I was on hand when he was doing that. And I asked him, well, why are you looking there? And he said, well, because that's where the evidence is taking us. The point being, for those of folks that are interested in all this stuff, that he actually exceeded what they expected to do, because again, that's where the evidence took him. So, just to remind people of the process, right, is that, ACS had to submit a very comprehensive plan for what they were going to do to the Mass Historical Commission before they did anything. And that was exhaustively reviewed by MHC. They gave him the go-ahead. He did his work, I think exceeding actually what was anticipated. He's sent a comprehensive report, and I did confirm with him that it includes recent information that I uncovered and would like to share with you all tonight very quickly. But that the report is very comprehensive. I have high confidence in him and his firm. And I also have high confidence that the full-time professionals, archaeologists, professional historians who are going to review the work at MHC will render a judgment on it. So the question remains right now is whether or not they're going to ask for more. And as I previously said, Greg didn't seem to think that more would be warranted. But we don't know, and he doesn't know until MHC renders their final judgment. The interesting wrinkle in this is that, you know, early in October, he reached out, and Rob Kuklovich at St. Mark's was CC'd on the memo, asking me again, and he periodically throughout this process, I've tried to be as good a conduit and source of information to facilitate a successful outcome as I've been able to do. So periodically, Greg would reach out to me with questions, and I would try to find the answers personally. And when I couldn't find them, I would reach out to our friends at the Southborough Historical Society, notably Sally Waters on a number of occasions, as well as Michael Wyson, and see if they had anything. And on a number of occasions, Sally went digging around in the archives of the Pilgrim Church, for instance, on one occasion, into other records to try to answer Greg Walwer's question. So the question Greg had for me in early October had to do with these three areas of concern that came out of the investigations in September. So he was still trying to get to the bottom of it. And, you know, as you know, there were three areas. One was sort of near the pollinator garden, actually, behind the library. One just to the north of the OBG stone wall in the proposed park area. And then one even more central in the park area that Greg described as a debris field. Now, the first two were foundation concerns. And one of them, the one just north of the OBG stone wall, was easily visible. I mean, I had seen it myself. And during the dig, actually, we spent some time standing there talking about it, over it. So there's those two foundation areas and the debris field. And he was still early in October was trying to get to the bottom of that. So when he asked me yet again, I went digging again, and you know, our colleagues at or you know, associates or friends of the Southborough Historical Commission were actually able to give me a copy, and I've got it here, of the official history of St. Mark's, which is this immense 750-page tome that's actually written again by Richard Noble, Nick Noble, who was the guy that wrote Fences of Stone, you know, that's, you know, considered the official town history. And this is the official history of St. Mark's. Because in looking at some maps and some assessors data that the Historical Society maintains, there were some hints that I was then, I took this immense book home and started digging through it. And what I discovered was a very interesting story, and I sent a digest of it to Greg Walwer, and it has to do with what I believe may well be the identity of those structures, which is follows. There's, and it had to do with looking at town maps. So for instance, in the 1854 town map, there's no structures that correspond to Greg's findings shown. However, the 1870 map of the town shows structures in the precise location, and I mean precise location, that's indicated by, you know, that Greg has identified near the pollinator garden, and then again in the proposed park area. Then there was, you know, I was looking at an 1898 map, and one showed them they were not registered there, but another 1898 map at the Historical Society showed both structures, or the southernmost structure, still in existence. Well, as I dug through this this St. Mark's book, The Echo of Their Voices is the title of this book. It was published in 2015. You come upon this fascinating story that begins describing work that was done, construction work done in 1898 and 1899 at the school. And everyone might recall that the St. Mark's buildings at that time were in that area where, like, we hold Heritage Day, like, you know, if you imagine the Main Street, Route 85 intersection. It's the northeast side of the intersection, where it's now the St. Mark's sort of open, fields. That's where the school was. On the other side, roughly where the library is now, this was Burnett Fay property. And this St. Mark's history has this wonderfully interesting story about, while doing construction in 1898 and 1899, the man who was then the steward of St. Mark's, one Mr. Lane, was supervising the projects, but the book goes on, and I'm quoting now, says that most of the work was done by William Washington and his son Edwin, Southborough's first free Black resident. Washington came to Massachusetts with his family from upstate New York. And this is actually footnoted here to say that William Washington was the grandson of an escaped slave, while his wife was descended from a slave woman and a Dutch sea captain. A little piquant fact. And that the Washingtons, going back to quoting the book here, moved into a house at the corner of Main Street and Marlborough Road, owned by Joseph Burnett, and that William started working for Burnett's Deerfoot Farm. So when Lane, the then steward of St. Mark's School and also sexton of St. Mark's Church, died in January of 1899, so just a year after William Washington moves to town, Washington, in fact, succeeds Lane both as steward of the school and sexton of the church. And there's a wonderful story a couple pages later in this book in which St. Mark's had gas that they were using for power at that point. And there's this absolutely terrific story about how one night, one of the duties of Mr. Washington as the steward of the school was to sort of, as a kind of night watchman. And he goes to making his rounds, the story goes, he notices something strange about the lights in the cellar beneath the schoolroom, went to investigate. The moment Mr. Washington opened the door, he smelled gas. Realizing there was a leak, he attempted to retreat, but it was too late. The flame from his lantern ignited the built-up fumes, and there was a sudden sharp explosion so loud that it woke everyone in the nearby dormitories. Although suffering from burns to his face and arms, Washington remained conscious as he staggered up the stairs to give the alarm. He's struggling to put the fire out. Some students come to assist him. They drag him out. He ends up unconscious. The Southborough Fire Department and students and quick-moving faculty put out the flames in about 30 minutes. There's extensive damage to the school, but the school is saved. And the next paragraph begins, William Washington was hailed as a hero for his plucky courage and keeping his head, giving the alarm and fighting the fire despite his injuries. He was presented with a check by the headmaster for his brave service, and so on and so on and so forth. Absolutely fascinating story. It continues that during the school year of 1903, 1904, Edwin Washington, who was one of the sons, he had quite a number of children, replaced William as head steward of St. Mark's. And that Edwin, at that point, this is the really interesting part, then William Washington, by the way, ended up dying in Everett. So at some point he moved to the sort of Boston area. The son who succeeded him as head steward of St. Mark's in the school year 03-04, moved his family to a home that's since been demolished on School Street, which would have thus left that building, which I surmise was the house, and the further back build, the northerly building, an outbuilding or barn of some type, would have left those things, those structures vacant. And they were likely torn down sometime between 1904 and perhaps 1908, when the land that the library now occupies was donated to the town by the descendants of Joseph Burnett. So the timing of it lines up perfectly. The location of the structures comports very strongly with this story about a home adjacent to the school at the corner of Marlborough Road and Main Street. The only place it could be is that area because the school was on the out of the side of the street. So there are many, many elements of this story that line up really quite beautifully. So I conveyed this all to Greg. I know he put it in his report. So now, what I would need to do, and I'm trying here to work on this, when I get a few minutes, is to sort of pin this down more definitively, because I just think it's an unbelievable story, absolutely fascinating, one that I want to tell as chair of the Historical Society, or commission, chair of the Historical Commission, but also that I think St. Mark's would have a really strong interest in having told. It's just a rich, sort of beautiful, moving story about, the first free Black resident of Southborough who comes to town to work on the Burnett farms and ends up steward of St. Mark's School and sexton of the church and is the savior of the school at one point.
So,
Is it exact? Does it need to be pinned down? No and yes, respectively. And maybe we'll get some help from Mass Historical as they sort of sift through all these documents, because I need all the help I can get.
But so Kevin, is the point of what you were saying is that there is a place in this space where you could tell the story that you just told?
Yeah, maybe. That's what that's my thinking at this point. And I would hope, Andrew, in the final report we get from MHC, that they're able to help us sort of sift through this apparently very large stack of facts, or findings is a better way to say it, that Greg Waller has uncovered, that I've tried to do my best to help with. And they can, let's say say, no, absolutely, we are confident that there are no interments in this area. Okay, fine. Or we think the historical stuff is so significant that we want you to go back and look a little further. I just don't know what the answer is going to be. And I've, consistently tried to defer to the expertise of the experts, which I consider Greg Waller. And like I said, I have such high confidence in him. And I hope people in the town will feel the same way. And I have high confidence in the professionalism of
Brona.
Brona Simon and the state archaeologist, and Jim Peters of Bureau of Indian Affairs, and all those folks to look at the evidence. And I believe it's pretty comprehensive. It's the best we could do, and come back with an answer. And I'm here to say that whatever the answer is, I'm going to accept it, because I think it'll be the right answer.
So this is a question that I have. If it turns out that elaborately building on this triangle is not a good idea for historical reasons, and the town has gotten $290,000 to put a park there as part of the design, how fluid is the definition of a park as far as the state is concerned? Could we just put grass and a bench? Could we put grass and a path? What's a park, Andrew?
I don't know, I would have to go back to look, but
Yeah.
Just refocusing, I think that, the reason I'm excited about this and still rooting for a happy ending, a good ending, is because I think it's a unique space. It's right next to the library. It's right next to the old burial ground. It's right in the center of town. 25, 30, 50 years from now, there's the if we can do something really nice and memorable that celebrates parts of the town's history that haven't been told before, and also to have, I think that to have a park that has helps teach, it helps to create gathering spaces there. It's a relatively large space, so Kevin, what you said is very interesting. I just think of, I'm such a visual learner. I just think of okay, where in this space would this be? I mean, one thing you can do is you can have, not remembering the term, Michael Klukman would probably know, those kind of stands which come up about 2 feet, right, and have 2 or 3 feet and have angled plaques that kind of tell stories. I like that. I've always thought that one of the first things to do was just to get kind of just a layout of this proposed park, and then there can be a second phase where some of the content is filled in later through a CPA funding or some other way, because I just don't think we'd be able to. We could come up with some kind of themes, and I think that's a really, I like the information. I'm excited about what you just said.
Andrew, can I jump in and just
How
say,
would it affect you? But this isn't something saying there's one area where you can't build on, right? Because the whole original purpose of the dig was to determine really whether you should, whether there were internments there, so it'd be inappropriate to really build or put a bench or a park on top of it, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
no,
now this is really more about structures that are just from
right. Yeah,
like 150 years ago rather than 400 years ago.
right. Well, yeah, this story that I'm relayed, I think is more a possible point of sort of conception. You know, I had mentioned to you, Andrew, that pursuant to sort of Freddie's comments about that park down at Southville Road and Corderville Road, you know, I went down there and sat down there one afternoon and sort of kind of took it in. And, you know, that's the one that's got the big, it's kind of a big informative sign about the history of Corderville and the mills. And then it's got the bell from the old mill that like used to summon the workers to, and, you know, I think there's some special things Freddie's talked about that, you know, currently I think it is a little overgrown. And it's because it's isolated. There's no parking there. You got to park at Fitzgerald's across the street. There, I was told there was at one point there was going to be like a bridge over the road. That the idea was that commuters would use it, and it's one of those kind of forgotten little places that nobody goes. But at the same time, I think I was telling you, Andrew, I find it immensely pleasant. I mean, I just had such a nice. It was
I think that is a model in some ways, but in some ways not a model of you can look. And it's significant that before Michael Klukman came, we asked him, go check out that park because that has some positives and some negatives. And, you know, he mentioned that there were junipers planted away. They grew up too tall. They made it look too dark. So.
Yeah,
what's the next step based on what you said? What's
right there? Well, there's some lessons that we process. Yeah, there were some lessons we could learn from that. Freddie's already made that point, and more articulately than I. But I think the one thing that I really kind of like about that space is that it has a theme and it has an idea. It conveys a little story. You sit there, it's very pleasant. There's the bell. You think about the workers, and like if we could, and I know I'm not 100% sure that if the William Washington thing, for instance, pans out, it could be part of a story, because I think there's a fairly complicated and rich story to be told in that space. So all I was saying is that when we get the final from MHC, for me, it will offer some clarity about the path forward. Not that we can't work until then and try to make progress, but I'm just conveying my mindset as one of 7. So,
but just to ask another, so like, what would be the next step in? Like, would you have a sketch that reflects an idea of a park based on this theme, or?
I'm and not to slow it down, I just don't know. I guess I'm like, I just want to listen to other people talk for a while I kind of mull on this Washington thing. And, the good news to me about, the select board's decision last week is that and nobody wants to drag it out any longer than necessary, but it does give us a little bit of time to be thoughtful, because we're not going to be trying to lay asphalt this November kind of thing. So
Yes, that is a
I-
big relief.
yeah, that's where I just want to shut up and listen to other people, because
No, and I think it's wonderful. Now we have William Washington here, and we didn't even know. And last week we had no idea. And thank you, Kevin. Now we do. So I think it's a wonderful addition that that I didn't know about.
it's pretty cool. Freddie's got her hand up though. Freddie, what do you?
Hi, everyone. Sorry I was a little late. I had a couple of questions and one comment. First, the park on Southville Road, that has many wonderful attributes, but before it got overgrown, it was overplanted. It was too dark and people weren't using it. And I'm going to say, Kevin, you went there with a purpose and intent of going there. And you went inside and sat there and saw how lovely it was. But what I can tell you is people do not go there. I see people walk down the busy on the sidewalk next to the busy road instead of walking through the park. So that was a case of being overplanted, which my point originally was. Not that it's overgrown, we can clean it out, it's limit up, still overplanted. Until you deal with that, people aren't going to go in, because people don't like going into dark parks with too much vegetation. That's just my experience and knowledge.
Okay, so that's a very good point.
So the next question I have, you mentioned that they only dug where the VHB plan indicated, but we weren't restricted to just where the VHB plan. So does that mean if we decide to do something on that space that wasn't shown soil disturbance on the VHB plan, that we have to start this process over again? And my second question is, tonight is the first, you said, as we know, tonight is the first time I've heard anything being near the pollinator garden on the library grounds. First time. So it's not an as you know, because I don't know that. I don't know what's there.
Yeah, I thought I had mentioned that in our previous meeting, but I'm not.
Freddie,
I don't know.
sorry, Freddie, did you see the part that was dug up and then laid back down flat again?
I did
you-
see that, because of course I
Yeah.
saw that.
I think that was what he was.
I was
think
told they
that's
saw
what Greg
nothing
was
there.
referring
That's
to.
why I was told they saw nothing there, which is why they laid it down.
Mhm.
And now Kevin's indicating that there's something of interest near the pollinator garden.
Yeah, Freddie, that by the way, that's not to suggest that I think the state is going to come in and demand that they rip up your gardens. So I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's more about the
Did you
concern.
say they're gonna come in and demand they rip it up?
Oh, no,
What did
no,
you
no,
say?
no. I'm
No.
saying just the opposite.
But I still would like to know what's going on there, if there's something happening there.
Right. Well, I think, and this is where, as I understand the process, that MHC is going to look at the evidence that Greg has gathered and try to make it. As I understand this, that it tends to be a matter of making sure whatever's there isn't further disturbed or is preserved, and that sometimes means simply just leaving it all alone. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to send a team of 100 people down and start, pulling things up. It may simply be a recommendation to make note that if there is future disturbance, let's say in some distant, possibly apocalyptic time when there's no more pollinator garden there, that it would simply be to note that no one should just go digging there willy-nilly. In
So,
other words,
can I interrupt for a second? Because
Yeah.
I just want to not be, spend a lot of time on this.
yeah,
Maybe after the meeting, I can talk with you, because I'd like to know what you just said, evidence. I didn't know they found anything, or there was anything there at all. And the fact is, we do have plans to do other work in that area. So
right. Well, yeah,
obviously not now, but it would be
Uh,
nice to know what this is the first I found there was anything. I heard they dug there because that's where there was a walkway going there on the VHB plan. This
Correct.
is the first time I've heard that they found anything of anything in that area. So
My-
we can talk about it later.
Right,
It's
well,
not part of this project.
just to, just so you understand, my understanding there is that this is documentary evidence. And not so much because they didn't excavate in the area where they suspect, based on the records and the maps, that there's this, the one, for instance, I think you've seen it. The
Well,
one
and
foundation.
you know what, but Kevin, that's not part of the park, so I don't want to go down that road. I'll talk to you afterwards about it because
Okay,
it relates to the park, but I don't want to tie up this
Well,
committee on an
I'm-
area that's not part of the park.
just as a matter of public record, I can't tell you much more than I've already told you because I don't know.
You know, there's something. I didn't know there was any concern there at all. And we
Well,
have plans to do other work, so.
hopefully
But
by
the,
Thanksgiving, we should have the final word on it,
I mean,
so.
Kevin said that there are 2 foundations and that one of them is over there. I think that's the extent.
so the
of-
concern is about foundations, but it's not about internments or burials or anything like that.
Right,
correct?
you can do anything you want on top of a foundation if it's. a
That is
reasonable
correct.
foundation.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So there's no, again, there has been no indication of interments. And,
But only where they dug because they thought something was going there.
Correct.
Correct. So that there may be, again, in that copse of trees to the north of the wall, there could be something there, but since there's no plan to remove those trees or to pave it or do anything about it, they didn't investigate there. And that was pretty well. I mean, I don't really want to be in the position of defending the methodology that was approved by the state and proposed by the archaeologists, but I'm just trying to explain it. As
I'm
best I
not being critical. I think there's implications to it.
Could
That's
I,
all.
could I ask for, feedback from James and Grant and Bill?
Should I leave?
No, not at all. You and Kevin are gonna talk about this on the phone, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'll speak.
Please.
Don't really have much to add. I don't think I've heard Kevin's update the other day at, at historical and heard it tonight. And, I think it's a potentially important development. Well, I don't know if it's a development, but Kevin's findings are potentially important. And I'm curious to see what the state says, but I don't really have much to add after that.
Okay. James?
I'd agree with that completely. Thank you again, Kevin. I get the sense that this information shouldn't dramatically change our plans. There could be something more dramatic in that MHC report, but I think it won't dramatically change our plans of this, replanting the grass in this area and having it be walkable.
Okay. And Bill? You're on mute. No comment? Okay. All right, so William Washington is an interesting piece of additional information here, which I think is fantastic, but what we have to decide tonight is whether we want to do a public forum before or after the Mass Historical report comes back.
Okay, the question that I asked before was, how would what would happen in the interim? The historical commission report is going to affect the public forum. How? Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question.
What's the answer?
I'm not sure if I just want to preface this by saying I'm not sure. I haven't decided when I want to have the public forum, Andrew. But I think the argument is that if the Mass Historical comes back and says, we need you to dig up that, that section over there, and, you can't do anything in this area over here that it might affect plans, and that would be the argument. But I just, yeah, that's, I think what that
To me,
position.
it sounds very unlikely because what the areas of concern are about foundations and structures, not about burials or interments or. To me, the purpose of like the information you just conveyed is to drive towards, based on the information, what design themes would you want to have in the park? How would you want it to look? What is the process that leads to expressing, making a recommendation of how you would want it to look and what the themes would be based on that story? What is the process of how you would get there? Because we already did have a process where we went through as a group at least 2 meetings, gathered up of a list of things we would want and ranked them, got the assistance of a professional, got renderings of it, and that's the most concrete expression of what we've got so far. If there's another process that leads to something similar with that, with what you're talking about, I'm interested in it, but what is it?
Well, I think, Andrew, the point now was that we as representatives of various contingents or interests in town had come up with what we thought, and then the point would be to throw it open to the public to see what
Okay.
what at least the people who showed up there wanted. And I think that was sort of a next step. James, what?
Kevin, do we have a copy of the report that ACS sent in to Mass Historical?
No.
Is that no?
No, and the reason we don't is because, again, the employer of Greg Waller and ACS is St. Mark's School, not the town of Southborough. So I don't have any, authority here. I mean, the whole process of this has been trying to be a goodwill ambassador between town folk and school folk, and just to try to make it happen. So I don't have a right to ask for that. I would hope that St. Mark's will share it. And certainly we'll see the final report from MHC, because they will directly share.
It's just the case if we do want to hold a public forum before we get, or there's a response from MHC, it would be useful to include that report, because as Andrew said, it's hopefully unlikely that Mass Historical would significantly disagree with it.
Hey, listen, I want to be clear. I mean, if I'm giving off different vibe, let me clear the air. I'm happy to go forward with a public forum at the earliest convenience of this working group. I don't have any objection to that whatsoever. I'm just simply pointing out that pursuant to whatever conclusion MHC comes to, that may impact, we may have done some work kind of in a way for nothing, but don't get me wrong. I mean, my dance card's pretty open, other than how busy I am at work. So let's just do it. You guys want to do it? Let's do it.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I think at a public forum, you could talk about what you just told us about Mr. Washington. I think would be very helpful to people, but we could go forward with this public forum sometime in mid-November.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'd be happy to, try to and say it a little quicker that, there's this story. It's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. I'm still trying to pin down the details, and maybe it impacts what you want to see there.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, in my ideal world, right? If all these ideas would be that people would coalesce around a good idea and then have it expressed in some way, even if it's just a handwritten drawing that just roughly sketches out what someone would want the park to look like based on that idea, right? I just think that because the deliverable from this group is a recommendation, right? And to me, I thought the appeal of the VHB renderings, because you'd see this is visually what this could look like, right? So, but if it's just a recommendation, we would like this space to celebrate Mr. Washington, it's hard to know what to do with that. You know,
Yeah, you need a visual.
yeah,
Well,
there needs to be
that was
some
partly,
visual stuff. It should be
So
done
that is
in
what we can
conjunction.
work on at this public forum. And
that was partly Freddie's idea to have just
Yes,
the
okay,
blank thing right there. And I think that's a fantastic idea, and just to see what other literal
Yeah.
physical designs we could get.
and we should encourage people to come who are not necessarily, you know, history buffs like all of us, or people
Right,
that just come
right.
from people that have, you know, young parents with kids, people that have lived in town a long time, and that don't come with some, because we've just talked about some of these ideas for so long. If people think I'm not interested in the idea at all, this is what I would think.
Yeah, show me the design. So I talked to Roger about an hour and a half ago, and he said he cannot make the 3rd of November, but he can make the 10th of November. Is that too soon for everybody?
no,
10th
actually,
of November is a CPC meeting, and I think there's not a good idea to have it when there's going to be people that would be interested attending another meeting.
What time is the CPC meeting?
It's at 7 o'clock. Could go to 10 or 11, who knows?
Another idea is, what do you think about the idea of having the forum on on a weekend, on a Saturday morning or something like that, where fewer people are working, you could just stop by, even have refreshments, or people stop by, offer their ideas. I mean, it's less of it's less formal than a meeting. Just throwing something out there. And it would also be nice. I look forward to finally having this group meet in person rather than Zoom.
Want to
So
think about a
maybe-
Saturday morning?
then the next Saturday would be Saturday, November 12th. Besides class, which I could hopefully get out of that Saturday morning, I'd be able to make it.
So if I
Okay,
can,
so
before we
possibly
get
the
into-
12th. I'll have to, Roger's out
Grant.
of town right now. Okay.
Okay.
Grant, what were you saying?
Oh, no, yeah, just before we get into scheduling and exact dates, just wanted to share my thoughts on the forum. I agree. I would like to have it sooner rather than later. I think that a lot is kind of hinging upon getting public feedback. The way I see it, I think we have kind of three things that we need to do. Well, we might have more than that, but we need to have the public forum and see what the public really thinks about this. We need to actually determine what we think of the designs. You know, I think we had 2 meetings with Michael Klutchman. The first one, or both of them, he was there, and one of them he just kind of showed us at the time, and we might have had instant reactions or whatever. But since then, we haven't really talked about what we think of his 3 designs. So I'd like to definitely get into that. That can be after the public forum. And then the third part, I think, is the name, which we haven't really done anything with, but that could take a long time too. I don't know, and that could also require another public forum. I mean, I don't know if
Thank you, Grant. I am so tired of being part of the St. Mark Street Park working
Yeah.
group. It's
So
Maybe
so yeah, that's kind of and then obviously we need to write a report. We need to come to an agreement and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
hopefully some of these other issues get resolved. But so yeah, I'm in favor of having a forum soon. That way we can get
sooner rather than later.
initial public input and then get going.
Can
Well,
everybody do
can
a
I-
Saturday?
I restate
Freddie, can
my-
you do a Saturday?
I don't know, but I'll try my best. Can I state one concern about what Grant proposed, which I raised before? In us reviewing the 3 plans we have now before the public input, I strongly recommend we get other people's ideas before we make up our own minds, because you don't know what will come out of that we might go, oh, that's really good. But sometimes when you've already made a decision, it's hard to be open to new input.
I
And that's
agree,
why you
Freddie.
normally do
Yes,
the
I
input
agree.
first.
Yeah,
That's why
agree.
I was actually suggesting that we do the public
Oh.
forum first, and then
Yeah.
after.
Sorry, I didn't understand
Oh,
that.
I agree completely too. I just think that the format, I think that we had talked about is, the 3 designs are presented and then there's like a blank canvas that can reflect, or more than one blank canvas for ideas that
Yeah.
come up from the public.
So the one issue that we seem to have a disagreement on, or to me, it appeared at our last meeting when we were talking about how to plan this, I suggested the way all the ones I go to that are planning a specific place and not ideas is you have people sit at a table with each table group having their own large plan, and they sit and they talk as a group so they can flush it out, get all their information. You have somebody who records it, whether it's one of those white sheets, and then you have a spokesperson from each group get up and say what they agreed on, and if there's any dissenting approvals. And I know that Marguerite worked really hard with people at the townhouse to come up with having each plan on a easel. That does not lead to the kind of discussion.
No,
that I'm familiar with.
Freddie. Oh, wait, stop. I hear what you're saying, and the way that Vanessa put it together with, she put it with aim was that it would be the 3 finished plans are on easels. The very large engineering blank one is also on an easel. Those are big. Those are all done. Those are all ready to go up. We even got the easels. Then they're going to be smaller versions, which are done now, smaller versions of the 3 VHB plans, lots of them. Everybody who comes in gets a packet. It has all 3 VHB plans. It has the engineering plan, and then it has more blank paper. So because I wanted to have a documentation of what everybody was thinking, oh, I want a fountain here, or I want a path there, so that we would have it all, everybody's ideas there. And if you
So
want, we can
that
do
doesn't-
it on a large thing afterwards and have each group come up with what they would like too. But it's important to me that the VHB plans are out there for people to doodle on and change around, because frankly, if you asked me to vote on one VHB plan tonight, I couldn't do it because I want some elements in one and some elements in another.
What happens in a large group all
Shuffle those
working.
around a bit.
Let
Sorry,
me just
what?
say this and then I'll stop, because I thought we agreed on this at the last meeting and I was surprised that this plan came out. What happens when you sit at a table with the large plan and work on it as a group? You can draw on it as a group, each
Mhm.
individual, it's big enough. I don't see how this committee, just pretend you had 20 people. Hey, how about 40 people? Are we going to look through 40 sheets of paper and then you have one sheet that each group, and if we have 5 tables, that's 5 big sheets. They can do their, and I think the little papers are a good idea. People can do their individual doodling if they want. We could look at it, but when you do these kinds of charrettes in major planning for parks and landscapes, you work in a group on the same big one, even if people have different ideas. That way they're talking to each other. If everyone's sitting there scribbling on their own piece, there's no exchange of
No,
ideas.
no. Okay, so let's add in the big ones too. All right? We'll add in the big ones. That is fine. I think that's a good way to do it. I'll just take it up with Vanessa and we'll do 5 or 6 of them, assuming we get 5 or 6 tables. How's that?
Sounds wonderful.
Okay, now here's the other question. Is this going to be televised, Zoomed, or owled?
Okay, I'm glad you raised this because this has been an incoming question. If it is not held on Zoom, there will be criticism that the meeting was less than transparent. However, there's really no practical, it's extremely difficult.
There's no way somebody
It's
can draw or
impossible.
participate if it's on Zoom.
The video of it would just be, the camera can't focus. I don't know how it would do it, but if
Can
there's a
we-
way you can do both, I mean, in-person participation is strongly encouraged for this format.
Can we say
I
that
really don't
people
see
can
how
mail
people can
in?
participate remotely, but if they want to video record it somehow, that's fine with me.
They could mail in, James. That would work.
You could do a second meeting on Zoom
Okay,
and allow people to call in, and then it's not as interactive, but you could present the interactive plans or, I know that's another meeting.
What about
No,
just
cool.
having a second meeting in person?
No,
Or
because they want Zoom.
Well, what if,
people
what if,
want to
I mean,
comment on Zoom, we could just have a public comment item at the next meeting after the public forum.
You got to present something if you're trying to address Andrew's concerns, which I understand. There are a lot of people who still won't do in-person meetings. And they'll
yeah,
say
I
that,
know.
and
And
because
even
of
the,
that, they've been
even
shut
the
out.
select board wanted to know why it wasn't going to be
Yeah, people,
electronically
format,
carried.
right? I mean, I think if I recall what Roger was saying at, was that our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, when he was here, that the first part of it is, you know, this part with the tables and everybody getting together. And then afterwards, there's kind of a recap in which, you know, people bring their ideas together and, you know, come up with the result and what they thought. So maybe I see that second half of it being easily, you know, able to be recorded. But
okay,
as someone who has listened to OWL meetings, if there's more than one person talking, which I'm assuming this environment is going to have, right? People, it should be a dialogue. Then it's just impossible to hear anything. You know, if you listen to the start of a meeting before everybody quiets down and you know, gavels in or whatever, then it's just you can't make out anything. So that's my concern about that.
May I ask or suggest, how about Sam filming it, which is better than the owl? And I agree, when you have a lot of people talking, you can't, it's garbage, gibberish. They could record it, they can cut out the first part. Or sometimes what I've had them do when it's noisy and everyone's talking around, they like do a fast speed up of just to show you that people were interacting and talking to each other. It's sort of like a video clip that gives you a feeling for what was going on. And then they could do the solid when people stand up and talk.
That would be great. I think that would be, I mean, yeah, I think that virtual interaction, just at least for the first half of it or whatever, is just kind of out of the question based on the format.
Impossible, yeah. What about asking
Maybe
Jay
virtual
and
participation.
Hassan if
yes.
they have any brilliant ideas about the best way to do this? And Freddie, can I call you after this meeting, because I don't want to take up our time, to ask you about your preferred format for those large blank designs?
I'll be home waiting your call.
Thank you. Okay, that'll be good. All right.
Okay, so
So we don't know about, we know we want to do it at some point, probably a Saturday in November.
Doesn't have to be though.
Well,
Just threw it out there. I mean, there was
the Saturday or the November?
no, I think we should do it in November
definitely
Definitely.
before
November.
Thanksgiving.
All right. And we need Roger Challen. Why don't I wait till he gets back? I think he's coming back at the end of this weekend, and I'll ask him for every single day that he's available. And then,
Can we try to come up with a day or two here that we're all available just so we can present that to him
yes.
rather than having to do a mass email chain about scheduling?
Okay, I'm no good for the 5th, and I'm keeping every other week, Saturday open for this.
But are Thursday evenings also still a possibility? So
Except
Freddie, you said you
CPC
can't do the
meetings.
10th?
Freddie
no.
cannot do the 10th.
What about the
CPC.
17th?
We have a historical commission meeting booked on the 17th at 7. If
Weekend
I'm going to
might be
suggest
better.
that you try not to meet when there's other committees of it, you know,
Yeah.
that are meeting, and that, or some may be more relevant, like historical, CPC, where people are coming with projects that would be interested maybe. And that you also, like Thursdays, you have Conservation Commission meetings
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
So is
So maybe we should do it
Wednesday
on a
better?
Saturday morning when
I
committees.
think Saturday would be great, and we could say to parents, bring your child and teach them how town government works.
Another option is that, you know, select board, I believe, is on an every other week, and same as planning board. So, and I'm not sure what else happens on Monday and Tuesday, but maybe we could
I
do
can never do Tuesday.
an off week of,
Yeah,
you know,
Tuesdays are
when
pretty
planning-
brutal.
when planning
Maybe
isn't.
Maybe
Let's try for
Saturday morning does make the most sense.
Okay.
Saturday morning, what about Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, full day Saturday, right?
What'd you say, James?
It just any time on Saturday, I think.
Yeah. Or what about Sunday afternoon?
I'm less enthusiastic about Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
Saturday.
So we're talking like the weekend of the 15th. Is that what we're talking about?
So
The
that would be
15th is a Tuesday.
November 19th or November.
Oh, sorry. My
Oh.
calendar was in October.
Yeah, I know. I keep doing the same thing. November 12, 19, 26 is Thanksgiving weekend.
Should we
So
just see if we can
12 or
do it on
19.
the 12th or the 19th?
Okay.
I'm just gonna be honest, I will do my best to attend, but I have a sister in hospital. I may have to leave at any
Oh.
moment.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry to hear that.
Sorry, Freddie.
Okay, so question mark 12 or 19. And this shouldn't be a terribly long thing either. It shouldn't take more than 2 hours, right?
No. It's such a wild card about how many people will come. It's such a wild card.
We'll
But,
offer them food. Okay.
Yes, I
Now,
think
and then,
that you should have, the good thing about
250
a Saturday at like 10 o'clock in the morning is coffee and donuts.
All right. Well, it could be fun. Oh, okay, so my job now, I have to talk to Vanessa after I talk to Freddie to make sure we get the right stuff. I have to talk to Roger to see
Can
if
I,
he's
can I ask
available.
something before you go down that road, Marguerite? Just
Sure.
to be, I made a recommendation, you agreed, but we didn't get feedback from all the other members, and I would just, even if it's, nobody's objecting, but I would like to ask everyone if they agree to that format at the table with all the, we don't have to vote, but I just would like consensus so that we're, if we're in agreement. Even though you and I agree, Marguerite, I'd like to hear it from,
If we
I'd
if we
say,
do that, sorry.
No, Andrew, you.
I agree. That makes sense. We'll just have to, each of us will really have to try to kind of publicize it, encourage people to attend.
I was
And-
surprised for the last one, there were a lot of people who were interested in attending that I didn't expect, just an FYI.
Okay, all right.
In terms of the format, Freddie, I don't have, I think that sounds good in terms of the, the large plans at the tables. I'll defer to your experience on this. I really have no idea how this works. So I think I did mention this at the meeting with Roger Chow, and I think it would be good to have opportunity for questions or something at the end. I think there's going to be the recap, but if people have any outstanding questions, we should be there to, answer them or something like that. So that's the only aspect that I think would be useful.
We also had discussed having each committee member stand up and give a limited 3-minute their perspective.
Yep.
what-
Yeah, I
what
think
they-
we're still
what they're
doing
bringing.
pretty much the same format as we had originally planned.
Right. The only difference is to put in a large empty plan for each table.
Like paper that could be this size, like it's bigger
Yeah,
than
even
just a regular
bigger.
sheet of
Right,
printer paper.
Right. Poster.
Yes.
So that's the only shift. And the other thing I have to find
Oh,
out about
William,
is,
Bill.
oh
Sorry.
yeah,
No, I'm sorry. Apparently, the Board of Selectmen cannot make a decision on the roadway until after town meeting. That town meeting may not approve anything that's going on with respect to St. Mark's decisions, either donate or not donate the land, whatever that turns out to be. So we don't know what size of this park is going to be. We have no idea whether there will be a park there at all. Is this, therefore, since that town meeting won't occur until this early this spring sometime, are these meetings that we're talking about now to present a public forum for discussion on the park? Are these premature at this stage of the game?
No,
I'm sorry?
that's my strong view. No.
Yeah, but you guys all voted, you bailed out on this whole thing at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. And it doesn't appear to me that there's a great deal of support at this stage of the game until we understand the consensus of town meeting. There's really not much of a support for the park at all. I think what I heard when I was listening to the Board of Selectmen meeting was a punt on this thing until next spring, but they wanted some sort of interim discussion or something associated with this park. For what purpose, it wasn't clear to me what, in fact, the Board of Selectmen would do with an interim report, and therefore, it isn't clear to me what, in fact, we're going to accomplish with a public forum to discuss what a proposed park should look like.
What occurs to me, Bill, is we could get into that meeting, the public forum, and have everybody say, we hate this, this is a terrible idea. Or we could get in and have people say, wow, I never thought about this, I'd like X, Y, and Z. So in a funny way, it's taking the temperature of the residents.
Oh, there's no question about that prior to the next spring. And it may actually give the Board of Selectmen an easel on which to put a proposed park, and therefore maybe gain consensus concerning whether, in fact, there should be a park there or not. I understand all of that. But we also have, at this stage of the game, 3 reasonable designs for a park. We understand that there has been no engineering done at this stage of the game. And so those parks, as they are conceptually designed, will probably not come to fruition as they are designed. There'll be either some combination of what we already have there, or in fact, there may be some other ideas altogether. My point is, at this stage of the game, even without engineering design on this stuff, what in fact are we going to accomplish having a public forum this early in the process? If it is only to provide a cover and some sort of general design to the Board of Selectmen so that they can bring this forward next spring, then I think it's premature to have this meeting.
I think that the purpose of the forum is twofold. One, it's idea generation. You know, we have some pretty bright people in this group, but maybe we haven't thought of everything. And, you know, this is an opportunity to get some new ideas into the mix and see what people want. And the second is feedback. You know, as Marguerite said, if 300 people show up and decide that they're not going to talk about plans, they're just going to yell at us for 2 hours, then that will be that. But I hope that doesn't happen. But you know, that will
I guarantee that's what will happen.
That will be public feedback of a sort, I suppose. So, you know, I think my hope for it is idea generation and or idea confirmation. Hey, what you guys have is great. You know, we love it. Go for it. You know, okay, that's good to know.
I like your optimism, Grant, but I doubt we're going to get a lot of confirmation on this particular set of proposals, as the case may be.
That could be true.
I think the public forum at this stage of the game is premature. But if in fact it is something necessary to accomplish objectives set up by the Board of Selectmen, then I guess that's kind of our duty. I don't know, by the way, even if in fact people came in, and I've been to those types of brainstorming sessions, even if they came in with their crayons and they marked all these various things up and they came up with a park design, it is not clear to me, given the discussions we've had within this committee so far, what our commitment would be to those particular ideas, whatever they choose to be. I mean, we're not designing from scratch here, but that's exactly what it appears we're asking the public forum to do, is to design from scratch. Now, I don't know where you go from here.
My experience has been the committee uses their best judgment. This is to listen and to hear, and we can just take it all in and then go and do what we would have done if we never had the open forum because our opinions were already better. That can happen. But hopefully you will hear from people and get an idea of where public opinion stands, or maybe hear something different, and maybe hear something so outlandish it doesn't suit anyone. But you can't, in my opinion, not at least have the exercise.
No,
And
and nobody's saying that, Freddie. You've misrepresented it. I'm
not
telling you,
misrepresenting.
yes, you are. I'm telling you that in fact, we're doing this prematurely. And that in fact, we should wait until at least after the first of the year, within a few months, for example, of town meeting, to in fact, engage in this exercise.
But
And
Bill,
if the Board of Selectmen wants a report, then give them the 3 plans we have right now and say that the commitment of this committee will be in a number of months to hold public forums, and there may be a redesign of it. But by the way, these are all conceptual designs now. These are not engineered designs.
they're bubbles.
So beyond that, there is in fact going to have to be engineering designs, which will, one, for among other things, establish cost. It'll establish the practicality of doing what it is we conceptually thought we were going to do. There are all sorts of things that go into the engineering design beyond the conceptual design itself.
Well, but Bill, just for a minute, what we're engaged on is basically a kind of creative endeavor. There's a piece of land. We're trying to come up with something that everyone will enjoy. And I think that people could be creative about it and share that with us, and that might be really useful.
And it's better to know that early rather than later.
I still don't see how the content of the public forum is better in January than it is now. Just begin the process and see how it happens.
And we can have a second one afterwards.
Yes,
Oh.
and
Are we talking you out of
And
it?
here we go again. Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
but-
fine. We can spend all of our Saturdays together.
yeah.
Forever.
Okay,
This whole-
okay.
Don't
I
put
think-
that in the minutes, please.
Bill, I think the hope is here, as you said, that we're being a bit optimistic, probably about town meeting, because what does happen? I mean, we've been talking about this all year. What does happen if town meeting does not approve of some agreement, does not approve this? We're coming up with designs to help town meeting decide, because from what I get the idea of, it's either town meeting happens and we don't do anything, we decide between leaving it as it is, because that's essentially what it would do, and a hypothetical park. Or we come up with a report and it's leave it as it is, or here are some ideas of what it could be.
You're right, James, but I think if we go into town meeting, they're going to want to know, one of the first things that I think they'll ask is, how much is this going to cost? And we haven't gone through the engineering design necessary to do that. And I don't see any plan to make that happen.
Well, rumor had it there were ways to finance it from certain monies.
Do you
But
think
Marguerite, finance what is my point?
Well, see,
Bill,
that's the part of it. So
this
Bill,
is not the function of this working group.
committee, I know,
is-
and we
was
have
just
to
to get
change the name of the park.
Design level recommendations for themes, and then that's a next step. All right, that you're right. There's not going to be
People will be complaining about it, right?
Right. You're 100, Andrew, you're 100% right. And my argument might be that we're done. The committee has accomplished what it was supposed to accomplish.
No, I think that by having the three, going through the priorities list and the 3 designs, but it sounds like people, I agree with, first off, it was part of the charter to have a public forum.
Yeah.
And we don't know whether, I definitely think some people will show up at the public forum and they really won't want to talk about the design for the park. They'll just want to be critical of the whole project. But I am optimistic. Hopefully there's some people that recognize the potential for the space and will offer some constructive feedback or new ideas about what could be
And
in the
maybe
space.
Maybe people would have buy-in if they thought that something that they had suggested was actually going to materialize in this space.
Maybe, but I mean, this park has already cost us, a DPW manager. I'm not sure how, in fact, the public is going to contribute to the park itself. I understand Board of Selectmen want that to happen, but I'm not sure where we're going to go with this. I'm not sure
You
what.
don't know until you hold the public forum and see what happens.
And I think
Yeah,
Jamie,
well,
what do you
I agree, but if that is the case, then November, which is a very limited month because of Thanksgiving and other holidays, and December, again, which is limited because of varying holidays and traveling, those 2 months are really tough to do public forums in.
You
So-
can hold another one, but I just don't
I-
see just waiting another 2 months just to.
James?
I've made my arguments. Thank you.
I think just on two things, I think hopefully we could, just looking at the size of the lot, it's a third of an acre, we could come up with an estimate looking at other municipal parks. That could be something we could include. That would not be too hard to draw a comparison. And two, as for public support, I mean, who knows? I was looking through town meeting minutes of the past 5 years, and apparently we've just seen declining town meeting attendance. Like from over 600 in 2016, I believe, to down to less than 200 at this fall special town meeting. So who knows? Maybe a lot of people show up to spring town meeting 2023. Maybe not as many. We're a town of over 10,000 people. Hopefully we can solicit some more comment.
I think what will certainly get people at town meeting is if somebody says, oh, it's going to cost everybody several $100s per year on their tax bill. That's going to get some folks there. And without an understanding of what this park is going to cost, I fear that, in fact, the town meeting is not going to approve this sort of thing.
Then I'll try to look. I think the comparable towns would be the ones surrounding Southborough and also others of similar sizes in the state, similar parks.
Right, but remember when we came up with a very crude design, similar to what we're talking about with the three more formal designs that we commissioned, or that somebody commissioned. Michael Weissman was basically saying, you can't afford to do this park, it's going to cost millions of dollars. And I'm a professional, I know. So, I mean, we're not professionals. We haven't conducted an engineering evaluation of this thing. It hasn't been costed out. I mean, conceptual design being what it is, I think we're finished with the conceptual design unless some miracle thing happens in a public town meeting.
Well, maybe, but if 100 people come and 500 people know about this public forum and have watched it or read about it, that's at least a more involved town meeting member.
So a town meeting, yeah. I mean, if in fact people who are interested in this park, or for one reason or another are interested in this park, view this tonight and have heard anything that I said and want to show up at these evaluations that we're talking about doing here over the next 2 months, then that's a good thing. But my commitment, but my firm belief here is it's going to be lightly attended. It'll be attended only by those people who have already expressed opinions, and I'm not sure where we're going to go with it.
Well, if
Maybe-
that happens,
Not to
Bill,
do
at least we
public forum.
tried. At least we
Yeah.
tried.
Yeah, I think those are all valid concerns. I mean, I think we should try to address them by advertising it and
Yes.
trying to get people there. But, you know,
Give it a try, but
if nobody
people-
shows up, nobody shows up. I mean, there's nothing. we can
if
do.
people are upset about this and concerned, then get off their tushes and come down to whenever this particular evaluation or, design session is going to be held and express their opinion. If nobody shows, then I think it was obviously ill-conceived.
I'm going to suggest that we already had discussed that this public forum is not for people to come and complain about whether we do the park or not. And that Andrew was going to start the whole meeting off by making that clear, that we're only talking about what would go there. And as I called it before, and I'm sticking to it, is a hypothetical park. We don't know at this time. We don't know the Mass Historical Report. We don't know the budget, but if we could build it, this is the theme, the ideas we'd like. And then that gives somebody a place to start from. And we're not going to have people saying, we're not going to support it at town meeting. It's just what's going in the park. And I thought we already, and people may show up and want to do the other thing anyhow, but maybe we have a fifth table. If you hate the park, there's a table outside the door where you
This
can
is the
go.
table for you.
They
Right.
won't get the coffee and donuts. They'll get the cold.
No, they
So,
get the
okay.
coffee and
Still,
donuts.
So,
No, but you know, it's not the purpose of this meeting to share whether we should do it or not. We're not discussing that because that's not our charge of this committee or this working group. Thank you.
That's right. Yeah, and I would suggest our charges, if our charge is conceptual design, our commitment as far as this committee is concerned is done. We have 3 conceptual designs. Now, I understand
I think-
you want to have a public meeting, a public forum just to discuss alternatives, fine. But I think we're pretty damn close to being finished here.
I
I
think we are
think-
too.
It's not just, I view the forum not just as a, thing that we have to get through, but I think it could have potential major implications for the design. And the point is that we don't know what we don't know. And, if we hold it and nothing happens, then nothing happens, right?
I will
But then-
say this though,
at least we
about
know.
one, because of the, the vote that the select board took at the last meeting, one thing that hopefully clarifies it is the question of, oh, so this park, will it be on St. Park's land or would it be on town land? It would be on the town land. Because it would be subject to the vote to approve the land swap. And I think that helps clarify that we're talking about building something that would be owned by the town.
That's a big thing.
Then there is the cost associated with it. And
Yes,
I think there are 2 issues there that are going to be a big discussion.
I know,
But you can't have a cost without a design.
correct.
And, if we're
There's
preventing
also,
preventing
also-
ourselves from designing it
right.
until we get a cost, then, we're not going to do it.
but there's also the fact that as a park, you can put in a park that doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, and then you can go back and put more money into it later if you want to. We could build a simple park, and then because we don't have a lot of money, and then maybe later do some improvements or modifications. So it shouldn't be a question of we can't afford it. We should be able to put something there, right?
but
By 2027, as Andrew said.
no, Grant, no, don't even suggest.
At our first meeting, I think I'm
Yeah,
holding you to
all
that,
right.
Andrew.
I think we're getting
Despite
out.
some
I think we've
concern, we
accomplished
can-
all we're gonna get done tonight, right?
I think so too.
Despite
All
some
right,
concern,
thank you,
we will
everybody.
hopefully
So
have it
I'm
the
gonna talk
12th
to
or 19th.
Roger about, are we all good for Saturdays in November except the Saturday, the 26th, which is Thanksgiving weekend?
The
So
12th
it's
and the
the-
19th.
Yeah,
But-
I'd prefer after the 5th, so the 12th or the 19th.
Okay, so.
I have a little bit of a preference for the 19th, but I'll do the 12th.
Okay, I'm writing working group forum, question mark on those 2 days. I will talk to Roger and I will see what else I can do, and I
Okay.
will communicate this back to you via email, non-deliberative. And is there any public comment? Do we have anybody here? I
have
do
two
not
attendees.
see any members of the public. All right. Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Was that everybody at the same time? That was
By Bill
Bill.
Signs.
All right, who's gonna second it?
Seconded.
Okay, that's good. All right, Ms. Gillespie.
Approved. Yay.
Oh, okay,
Aye,
Ms.
whatever
Landry,
I
aye. Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Nicholas Worley.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Farrington.
Aye.
Mr. Sines.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Dennington.
Aye.
All right, we are officially adjourned. It is 8:37. Freddie, I'm going to call you now if that's okay. Thank you, everybody.
Good night,
Um,
everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.